in a Red Cross color?
Sure. Mushrooms.
Yeah, it's supposed to be raining.
3 into my
I'll leave you guys alone for a moment.
Fusion. Hello everyone, it's Dick here. I've had an interesting life. My personal and professional choices, combined with cosmic happenstance, has resulted in me standing in some wondrous rooms and fantastic places amongst fascinating and not so fascinating people. I would venture to say that my life is Gumpian in its bizarre, seemingly coincidental, surrealistic outcomes. I've come to expect a fair share of absurdity and confusion mixed into my everyday routine, or what I loosely claim to be a routine. Not a day ends without inadvertently acquiring a tale with which I can regale my beloved wife Fanny, or my buddy Shakedown, who has lovingly described me as hyperbole personified. As a student and practitioner of non-objective art, rooted in Dadaist and Fluxist traditions, the indescribable is literally my bread and butter. Even while living inside and now inoculated against the wonderful chaos that is my brief stint in existence, I have once or twice been confounded to the point of speechlessness. Notably, once a year at our Welsh Village Agricultural Show, I am baffled at my uninterrupted 3-year loss in the fine art category against the glaringly amateur and flawed entries of my local competitors. I suspect foul play, but I digress. On every visit to Sir John Soane's museum on Lincoln's Inn Fields in London, which until recently was the single most unique museum that I had ever experienced in the world, where the almost cult-like staff, and with straight faces mind you, dryly explained to visitors Sir John's imaginary friend, a monk named Padre Giovanni, who lived in the purpose-built Gothic monk's parlor and the monk's yard, a bedroom and grotto Soane had built for the figment in his London home. A few years ago now, my buddy Shakedown and I took a motorcycle tour into Scotland, northern England, and Wales. Along the way, we spotted a sign for a town named Cockermouth. Of course, we needed to detour to visit what we assumed would be such an amusing destination. Along the way, we saw signs for a village named Hungladder, to which Shakedown remarked over the comms, "That was my nickname in college," a comment that sent me into prolonged fits of laughter into my helmet. After briefly considering a detour to Hungladder, we continued on to and arrived in Cockermouth. Not knowing what we were expecting, the town still was not what we expected. It appeared to be a well-moneyed town in the middle of rural England, historically financed by the wool trade. We walked the handsome tree-lined high street looking for any evidence of self-awareness by the locals, and found only a single mug in the back of a curio shop. The mug said in plain lettering, "You can take the girl out of Cockermouth, but you can't take the Cockermouth out of the girl." When we presented the single amusing artifact to the elderly lady at the till, she wrapped it without fanfare. "I have to ask," I said, "what's with the name of your town?" Blankly she responded, "It stands at the mouth of the Cocker River," absent of an ounce of wryness. Why am I telling you all this? Well, I'll tell you, my equally absurdist resilient viewers. I've had yet another confounding experience in my many travels, this time at the Icelandic Phallological Museum in Reykjavik, Iceland. Delivered with the same straight face as the old broad in Cockermouth, the staff and exhibitions at the Penis Museum confounded me, which after my preamble you will agree is a difficult feat. Founded by none other than a career classroom schoolteacher and headmaster, the Icelandic Phallological Museum is as much of a tongue-in-cheek dick joke as it is a competent quasi-scientific museum. Greeted with the founder's mortal remains, ashes, not penis, just past the turnstiles, visitors are forced to acknowledge that Sigurdur Hjartarson has given his life to this collection. Currently curated by his son Hjortor Sigurdsson, it is a family business. The collection had modest beginnings when Sigurdur was gifted a bowpizzle, a braided whip made from bull penis, as a boy in 1974 to help with his chores of herding the family cattle. Subsequently making friends with whalers, fishermen, farmers, and the like, he was soon the recipient of hundreds of specimens. Add to that the donations of other penises, including a human donor in 2011, which unfortunately was botched in retrieval, and the museum says is still looking for a younger, bigger, and better donation. Sadly, I'm still using mine. The collection moved from the founder's office to a public museum space after his retirement from teaching and obtaining a grant from the Reykjavik City Council in 1997. Despite rising visitor numbers leading into 2003, the collection and its founding family relocated to Húsavík, no longer able to afford the capital city rents. Regarded suspiciously by the locals, Sigurdur successfully convinced the Húsavíkins that the museum was not pornographic and was allowed to stay and flourish until his death. Sigurdur's son Hjörtur relocated the museum back to Reykjavik in response to the country's developing liberal ideas reflected in its popular culture and progressive politics. When I told my daughter Tudi that we were going to Iceland for a summer of adventure, she periodically mentioned the Penis Museum as a running joke. Little did she know that the museum was on the itinerary as early as March when I began planning our trip. An odd collection of scientific specimens, weird historical tchotchkes, penis-shaped cultural and pop cultural symbols and memorabilia, celebrity and rock star plaster cocks, and a room of mythical penis specimens taken from Iceland's various spirit folk, including trolls and elves. The museum is a conundrum. While reflecting on our visit over a couple of penis-shaped waffles, I decided to catalog this museum along with Sir John Soanes and my Fluxus forebears in that part of my brain that revels in the understanding that not everything needs to compute. Some things, perhaps the best things, are unfathomable. If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.